All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Pierce Brothers. Today we're doing our, if it was an end of the world scenario, what rifle and handgun would you take? You only get one rifle, one handgun. So, should be an interesting discussion
I didn't know it was
here.
an end of the world scenario. You just said if you can only have one for the rest of your life.
That's why I said apocalypse scenario.
No, you fool.
I guess Jake is just taking one for the rest of his life.
Well,
all right.
Well, can I start?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So let's start with. We'll do rifles first, and then we'll go back through and do handguns.
Just do rifle and handgun, and then we'll just roll right down the line.
All right. Okay. So my first choice would be a 223 bolt gun. Actually, I'd prefer in real life. I'd really like to have a Browning BLR 223, but I don't have one of those yet. So right now, as of now, it would be a bolt gun. Right now, it's a Savage 223. I can shoot out to about 700-800 yards pretty comfortably with this gun. Kill pretty much anything I want. And 223 ammo is very readily available all the time. Most militaries have 223 ammo. So
technically 5.56 NATO.
Well, you can shoot it. It would be okay. So yeah. Anyway, so. But yeah, that would be my number one pick for a rifle. But obviously number one would be a Browning BLR 223 because I'd be on horseback as a world scenario, end of world scenario. You're not going to have a car, so I'd have my horses and I'd want to carry it on my horses. So
I've got one of those, but no, you can't have it.
Yeah, so pretty much, yeah, it would be a Browning BLR, but in my current circumstances,
BLR 81. That's what you'd want.
Yeah, 223. Anyways,
well, there's a difference.
Well, yeah. Anyways, next up, handgun would be my Blackhawk. This one's stainless steel. My other one, I like my other one better, but it doesn't have the 9mm cylinder. So I can shoot 38s, 357s, or 9mm in the same gun. And pretty much, if you can't find one caliber, you'll probably find the other one. So that would be my two picks as my number one handgun and rifle. So pretty much no matter what, you can get ammo. My rifle, though, I'd almost even want a 22 long rifle as my gun. But then I'm like, 223 is still pretty light.
And
well, you can still kill pretty much anything in North America with it if you want.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's preferred, but you can still do it. So,
yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, those are my picks.
All right. I guess rifle first for me would be my BCM. No scope yet because I'm waiting on it to show up in the mail, but it's a Trijicon Credo on there, 1 to 10 power. So I'd have a 10 power scope, and then of course 5.56 NATO, pretty popular cartridge. So ammo's readily available, and you can dual purpose this as hunting or self-defense. So you kind of have a dual purpose rifle there. And autoloaders are better than bolt action.
Yeah, not in the end of the world scenario.
Yes, in the end of the world scenario.
It has to count.
Yep. And then handgun wise, I'd go with my FN 545, 45 ACP.
That's the worst choice you can do. At least 9 is
Yeah.
Yeah, at least it's not a SIG. You're not going to blow your balls off and not be able to get to the hospital.
Anyways, but 45 ACP, potent enough, you can do a lot of stuff with it. And then I have an EOTech E-Flex on there right now. We'll torture that here at some point, and then it'll probably get replaced by a Trijicon RMR, because Trijicon is king. And yeah, this gun's been ultra reliable, lots of rounds through it, shoots pretty much anything, and 18 rounds of the Lord caliber, which is nice.
I wouldn't choose
Highest
45 ACP.
Yeah, why not?
You'll never find ammo.
Oh, except I have ammo, so yeah. Anyways, those are my choices.
Joe, you would die. Don't make me laugh. Don't let it make me laugh too hard.
I ain't the only one with any sense around here, you mean?
It's in a different venue now, so if you don't know, Carter broke ribs 3 or 4 days ago. And he's He's hurt.
He's a little gimpy.
Yeah, I'm already pretty good, but yeah, quit making me laugh.
We can sucker punch him if we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Abby did that
jealous.
yesterday. She forgot. She comes up, she's like, what? And I'm like, "Oh."
She's Porter's 7-year-old daughter. She's a handful.
Yeah. She's a character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Jake. What's on your list?
I would take a 73 Winchester, is specifically the carbine. I like the carbines better. But this one's chambered in 45 Colt. You can also get them in 357 Magnum or,
You
38
probably want the
specials, whatever.
357 because it's probably a little
Probably.
more readily available from people.
Yeah, but at the same time, like if it's an end of the world scenario, I don't want to be out there gunfighting with everybody anyways. So
That's true too.
Yeah, you'd be off
Um,
not trying to
Yeah, I
fight.
was gonna say
Yeah.
I have 3 pack saddles and 7 riding horses, so we're good. Everyone can just show up. We can put about 250 pounds per horse, and away you go.
Yeah.
yeah, so these are very easily maintained. They got 2 side plates, basically just one screw holding them on. You can take that off, completely clean the internals. Very simple action. It's virtually impossible to have a failure to feed or a failure to eject with these. A cartridge won't fit out of here if it's already in the channel there.
He literally holds it.
Yeah, literally hold this. So you can run these upside down if you want. Any direction. They just always work. So that's and they're well proven on the frontier all across. I mean, from virtually the beginning of before the Civil War with the old volcanics through the 1860 Henrys, and it's all very similar action to this.
The
and
King patent, yeah.
yeah, so it's well proven for over a century of hard use, and yeah, so that'd probably be my first pick. 357 Magnum might be a better choice, but I've only got a 45 Colt, so that'd be what I'm using. Handgun wise,
And of course, Jake's
Before Jake's
Jake's
Mr.
picking a
1911 guy.
45 ACP as well. You're both gonna die.
I've got more ammo I can carry with this.
Yeah, Jake could load up all of your horses with his ammo and still have more.
And I've got enough parts on hand to rebuild this for probably 3 lifetimes. And, so 1911, this is my Alchemy Classic government model on 45 ACP. Very accurate. 1911's one thing you get with these over other handguns is a really good trigger. This one's got a 3.5 pound trigger pull. Accuracy, they guarantee these to shoot like 1.5 inches at 25 yards. So, I mean, pretty much as accurate as most, or a big majority of revolvers on the market. You can get revolvers that shoot better, and you can get 1911s that shoot better than this one, but it's just, for an all-around gun, I mean, it's hard to beat a 1911, so,
Yep.
yeah. So those would be my my choices.
And
you
like
get-
Jake mentioned, he has enough parts to keep that thing running for
yeah,
more than just his lifetime.
parts and springs and magazines. I got a couple boxes full of magazines, and so,
Yeah. Something else Jake mentioned is, just he wouldn't be fighting, he'd be trying to evade. And, in reality, that's probably the smarter option, depending on the scenario and that. But with family and kids and everything else, it's not like you're going to be out there trying to fight everybody you see. You're going to try to be avoiding everybody you see. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
well, that's one thing that the lever action does well is, like, in a pinch, it could certainly be used as a fighting rifle, and yet you can go on and kill and hunt with it easy enough, and maybe not, you don't have the precision long range as Porter's bolt action or something, but that's
Well,
where a
if
good
all of
hunt
us are
skills
together,
come
we
in.
can all take care of whatever we need to take care of.
Yeah.
Yep.
Joe can be the close quarter gadget boy.
Gadget
Sucker punch him down.
Yeah. Bam, ribs. Elbow to the face.
and pile drive in the face.
Well,
Well, gadgetry, Joe, you know who'd get night watch, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, so he's gonna have to get his night vision goggles.
Vision, yeah,
and
yeah. All right.
All right.
What are
Dad.
Dad's choices? I'm genuinely curious here.
Well, Joe was giving me a hard time before the video started. He saw me carry over 4 guns. There's a reason for that. I'm not choosing 4. I'm narrowing it down, but there's an explanation on that. We'll go over the rifle first. So, frankly, I don't have the rifle that I should have for that scenario. And so I kind of thought, I've been thinking about doing one of those for years and years, and I probably will do one now. But if in a production rifle, probably the closest thing would be the Ruger Gunsight Scout in 5.56, I guess it is. Isn't that chambered for 5.56? They shoot 2.23 or 5.56 in it, but they discontinued that gun. But it's still less than perfect for what I have in mind. But the concept is good in that it would be a bolt action chambered in 2.23 and 5.56. Be tightly chambered and correctly chambered. It'd probably have a 1-8, maybe a 1-9 twist barrel, so I can stabilize bullets clear up to 75 grains. Get out some long distance if necessary. Not really, really long, but 500-600 yards, still make hits very reliably. I can take deer with that load. I can take elk with it. It's not an elk cartridge, but in a survival situation, yeah, I could kill elk. I've done that with 2.23, in fact. So, one shot, by the way. But again, it comes back to being a good hunter and so on. The other thing is, in an end of the world scenario, if that's what it would be, and Joe and Jacob touched on this too, you're not gonna. It's not going to be a, what was the name of that movie, Red Dawn?
Yeah.
Shooting them up, unlimited ammo available and so on. What you got in your pack is pretty much what you've got. And so every shot has to count. And that's one reason I go with the lightweight 223 is because there's much better cartridges for that long range application and all that. But you limit how many you can carry. So it's like, would you rather have 500 rounds of 223 or 200 rounds of .6s. I don't know the exact ratio on those two cartridges in weight, but you get the point, or 308. In other words, twice as many 223s as 308s. Yeah, I'll take the 223 or a lot more than a 6.5 Creedmoor, any of that stuff. So the other thing is the 223 is so wide, and I use that term generically, meaning 5.56 and 308 or 223, is that you're going to, chances of finding ammo source at some point are much higher than if you're carrying something
pretty much
else.
guaranteed to find some at some point.
It's just the way it is. So the rifle would have to be something that's just absolutely dead nuts reliable, like a Mauser 98. Although it would not be a Mauser 98. Probably the closest thing would be the Ruger 77 Mark II action or Hawkeye action, which that's just a brutally tough and strong action. This one is 223, by the way. The gun would have, in my opinion, probably a 20-inch barrel. Maximize close to maximize velocity. You can get more velocity along the barrel, but you're still trying to keep it handy, able to be carried on a horse, fairly light. But it would also have iron sights and possibly an aperture sight, and of course an attachment system for probably 2 scopes, so you have an extra scope in the field. This is a Mossberg MVP, by the way. Of course, it utilizes the AR mags, and it's actually a great gun for the money. It actually comes very close to the scenario that we're discussing, but I would probably opt for a custom-built gun. But what comes back to, okay, mag or no mag? And the reason I ask that question is that in a military situation, you've got support units supporting you, ammo, mags, extra parts. Gun goes down, they gave you more gun, you got more guns and so on. But in this kind of a apocalypse, I think Joe's calling it scenario, what you've got is what you've got. And if you lose your mag or magazines, you're sunk. You got a very poor single shot, if you will. So that would be $1 million question of whether, and that's why I say the Ruger Gunsight Scout may not be the ideal in that situation, although it would be a very, very good choice. I don't
The
know.
flip side of that is if it takes an AR pattern mags, they're everywhere and they're cheap.
That's true,
And-
but again, the way I see that scenario is to stay out of the way, because if you get into firefight after firefight with people, the bolt gun would not be a good choice. The AR would be a much better option, or a Mini 14 or something along those lines. But the object is stay alive, get out of the way, and survive with food and survival type things. And I just see that 223 5.56 platform as a very, very important rifle in that application. It falls short in many areas, granted, but the fact you can carry more ammunition and you can do a lot of tasks with it. Port and I have done a lot of shooting with that thing out at 500, 600, 700 yards, and with right loads, you can get there with it. It's a little weak, granted, but I can kill deer and elk with it all day long.
Yeah.
One shot becomes a good hunting situation. Plus, if you knew there was a sniper on a given hill with a 223, would you be willing to charge? And you don't know where he's at, but would you be willing to charge up that hill? No, I don't think a very smart guy would do that.
No.
So some kind of a custom 223 bolt gun, 20-inch barrel, 30 stiff barrel, super accurate. That's probably what I would go with. So, again, I'm not cheating, Joe, by bringing 2 rifles. I just use them as demonstration. Come to handgun, I'm kind of like Porter in that one of my all-time favorite handguns, I actually have a pair of these. It's a 5-inch Smith model. This is a pre-27. Been shot a ton. This is a great gun in the day. 38 and 357 was the cartridges. The 9mm really hadn't made inroads in U.S. in popularity. So that's actually a phenomenal gun. Shoots extremely well. It's easy to shoot well as well. As much as I love it, and it would actually it's actually a very proven personal defense, close quarters type thing, hunting handgun. I mean, it kind of fits everything in that gun. That would never be a bad choice. And actually, Porter and I had not talked about this video at all, period. But I kept sticking in the back of my mind as well the option, and I didn't bring the cylinder to demonstrate it, but this is a Ruger old model Blackhawk with a 9mm cylinder. So I'd take both cylinders, because 9mm NATO or 9mm Luger ammo is everywhere.
Everywhere.
38s and 357s.
Yeah, I mean, you can find an abandoned house at some point and have ammo in there. But the same thing with the 38 and 357 cylinder, or the 357. You can, of course, shoot 38s, which is probably the world's most popular revolver cartridge. And, of course, the 357, what a great round that is. Even though I really favor bigger bores for my personal use, 44 Specials, 44 Mag, 45 Colt rank as my favorites. Even though I favor those, the 357 is a highly versatile cartridge. In fact, Doug Wesson, when the 357 registered Magnum, as we call them today, was first developed in 1935. He, of course, came west and went hunting. He hunted moose, he hunted antelope, deer, elk, even took a grizzly bear with it. Some of them were in Elmer Keith's words, at distances that would have been a good rifle shot. So the 357, and I've hunted with it a lot. My experience with the 357 is actually pretty extensive. With good ammo, the right loads in that, you can kill about anything you really need to with it, honestly. And it's loud, yeah. But again, we're not talking about shooting a lot. And we kind of come back to the same concept as the 223s, in that as much as I love a 45 Colt and some of those, I can carry much more 357 or 38 ammo or 9mm ammo. Yeah, just on person, I can get more rounds. Because if you go full auto on this and that and the other thing, you burn up all your ammo. Well, your gun's not a very good club. They're better clubs. So really, it's going to be a survival and stay out of the way situation. So it's not a very original choice, but this gun actually is a real shooter. It shoots incredibly well. Now, I'm one of these guys that will, I'll buy several models of a given gun, and I will take the best shooter of the bunch. Some of these I've shot that were good, not bad. But not outstanding. This one's outstanding. This thing will shoot a ragged hole at 25 yards and move out to 100 to hit things that you wouldn't normally consider typical with a handgun. So those are my choices, and that's kind of the basis why. So again, unlike Porter, it's like, yeah, we have horses for a reason. We got pack saddles and survival. We here a few years ago, 9 years ago, we had that what we call snowgeddon here in Idaho. buildings collapsing. It looked like a disaster area.
Yeah.
And it was real sobering because I realized at that time without shelter and that how many people will die in an apocalypse situation just from the elements.
Mm-hmm.
And so survival, the
I can
basic
tell you
food
one-
and shelter is going to become paramount.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I wouldn't stay in Idaho. I'd move. I'd be a nomad and move further south.
For south,
Further
I don't
south.
want to deal with winter.
Well, and if
Well,
you don't have shelter
if you have
anymore,
horses, you don't have shelter, you don't have anything, move south. Down to Mexico if you have to, but move south.
move south. Port's that person that when it hits 60 degrees, he's got to have a coat on.
Uh-huh. Well, just not just that, but you also think about, okay, you have a wife, you have kids, and do you want to deal with 3 foot of snow on the level and try to feed your animals and your kids at the same time?
Yeah, it gets hard.
Not worth it.
No.
I mean, I don't care. Okay, yeah, you can have so much canned food for so long or whatever else, but, just move south and start up another homestead. It's not that hard. I mean, it's hard, but,
you make us sound like a movie, Port.
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
But, it's better than dealing with 3 or 4 feet of snow on the level. So,
Yeah, well, and on that note, I mean, you look at the things that we rely on in our modern society, from food deliveries and fuel and everything else, and within a couple of weeks, there'd be some pretty mass chaos if all of that was shut down.
Well,
And
if we got hit with an electrical grid problem of any sort,
EMP. of
nobody's
some
going to
kind.
be pumping gas. And if we had an earthquake or bombings or some kind of a takeover, your car or vehicle is pretty much useless. In other words, roads are going to be broken, and you're not going to be able to just drive up to your favorite cabin or wherever you're trying to take refuge. And that's why I talk about the weight of the guns and ammunition, because what you got in your pack is what you're going to be living with. I mean, that's and again, horses. That's why we have, one of the reasons we have horses is there's some mobility there, but for the most part, vehicles not going to exist.
Yeah.
I've got fuel tanks, diesel and gas, but you're probably, I mean, if it was a takeover from another nation, if it got bombed, if we had an earthquake, whatever, it's probably not going to be a lot of good.
Yeah. Well, and you look at how fast a grocery store would run out of stuff, and your ability to get to a grocery store. I mean, grocery stores get 1 to 50 deliveries a day, and if suddenly 2 or 3 days go by without a delivery, those shelves are empty.
Overnight.
Look at COVID and how empty things were just from limited supply on some things. And you go into a grocery store and be like, oh, well, they're out of everything I need. And, but in a scenario where suddenly there's no more deliveries from fuel or whatever kind of shutdowns, you're pretty much sunk, So what kind of storage do you have for food and water and clean water supply and
Or
medicines and first aid kits, things of that nature? Do you have a water filtration system where you can go to the river and pump water and have it filtered and clean? There's some things to, assess in your own life and make sure you're ready to go for some kind of scenario. So, kind of a sobering topic. There's a book, it's called 1 Second After, and it was written a while back, but it's about an EMP strike in the USA. And the book, it's kind of an eye-opening book if you read it. It's all fiction, obviously, but it definitely
thinking.
It does, yeah. It was written back in the early 2000s when kind of the whole nuclear scare was starting and all that. I guess not starting, because the nuclear scare started back with the Cold War and all that.
Well,
but
it was starting with that North Korea was kind of starting to get.
But anyways, this was 2000s, and basically the book explores what would happen if an EMP went off over the USA. And, deliveries are all shut down. There's no more vehicles. Food supplies are suddenly not there. And anyways,
Neighbors who you think are good people
are friendly
probably
suddenly
are not.
aren't very friendly.
Well, they're not going to be your friend.
So anyways, just something to think about and consider and make sure you're prepared. Not just guns, we talk about guns because that's our focus on the channel, but food, water, first aid, medical supplies, prescriptions and things. Do you have enough to get by for a little while?
Well, that's why we should all be shooting flintlock rifles. Make up my own black powder, cast your own bullets,
Cast your own bullets.
go find your own flints, and you're good to go.
You're good to go. Yeah.
Well, that's something else I actually was going to touch on the revolver thing. Is Jake and I were just talking about this a couple of days ago about, let's say you couldn't get ammo. Well, a revolver is very easy to load ammunition for if you're savvy anyway. It's perfectly good ammo. I can cast bullets. We can find weights in a junkyard and we can cast bullets up. And of course, if you got a primer and powder supply and whatever, you can do it with hand tools, minimal hand tools, and load and away you go. And an auto is not going to work with that kind of ammo. It doesn't have the versatility that the revolver does. And that's where the revolver, excuse my French, but it kicks the auto's butt.
Yeah.
So you load them up and down according to what you're needing to do. In other words, for, shooting rabbits and not destroying them or shooting elk or whatever you need to do. So,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. What are your choices? Let us know. And then, what do you do to prepare? So always a good topic. So have a good discussion in the comments. We'll read them. So we may not get involved in the comments, but we'll read them. Anyways, thanks for watching.